into our read. I want to say blessings, 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 beloved. I am Mama Pam, aka Pamela Dobson, and I do read, beloved, 7 minutes every day, so you do not have to read. We're resuming our read for today. Today is Friday, January 27th, 2023. We're reading from enduringword.com, 2 Samuel, the 16th chapter. David flees as Absalom asserts his reign. David flees. Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth. Now this Ziba was the servant of Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, to whom David showed great kindness in 2 Samuel chapter 9, who met him with a couple of saddled donkeys. At a time of great need, Ziba met David with essential supplies. This was a generous and helpful gift from Ziba. Ziba speaks against Mephibosheth. He's staying in Jerusalem. So Ziba told David that Mephibosheth was in Jerusalem waiting to come to power after David, and Absalom ruined each other. Ziba told David that Mephibosheth longed to restore the family of Saul to power. So today the house of Israel will restore the kingdom of my father to me. Now these were lies. These were lies that Ziba told David, and this will be revealed in 2 Samuel 19:24-30. Actually, Ziba left Mephibosheth behind to make it look as if Mephibosheth did not support David. So this report from Ziba hurt David, because in this time of crisis, the last thing he needed to hear was that another friend had turned against him. Ziba was utterly despicable, and the more so because at the moment the sorrow he brought to the heart of David was his feeling that his kindness towards Mephibosheth was ill-requited. Remember, he brought Mephibosheth to his table and he said he would eat at his table every day, gave him all of Saul's property and land back, and now Mephibosheth gonna do this? So this was a shameless and senseless slander uttered by a false and faithless sycophant. All that belongs to Mephibosheth is yours. David, acting on the only information he had, assumed that Ziba told the truth. Therefore, he rewarded Ziba's loyalty and punished Mephibosheth's reported disloyalty. This was exactly the response that Ziba wanted. Ziba is an example of someone who wickedly uses a crisis for his own benefit. Shimei curses a deposed king. A man from the family of the house of Saul. Now, Shimei was a distant relative of the former King Saul, and he still resented David for replacing the dynasty of Saul. Cursing continuously, threw stones. You bloody thirsty man, you rogue. Shimei was about as offensive as a person could be. He wanted to destroy any shred of dignity or confidence that David had left. There were always people ready to rejoice when a leader falls. There are. Shimei had this heart against David for a long time, but he could only show it when David was down and out. It's very hard to bear a cowardly attack. One is very apt to reply and use hard words to one who takes advantage of your position and deals you the coward's blow. Only the coward strikes a man when he's down. The Lord has brought upon you all the blood of the house of Saul. You are caught in your own evil. A quick look at the outward appearance of things seemed to confirm Shimei's analysis, but Shimei was wrong. None of this came upon David because of what he had did to Saul or Saul's family. God bless you, Dr. Dan. I see you. Shimei was wrong because David actually treated Saul and his family with great love and graciousness. Shimei was wrong because David was not a bloodthirsty man. It is true that he was a man of war, but not a bloodthirsty man. Shimei was wrong because David did not bring Saul and his family to ruin. Saul himself brought the family to ruin. And Shimei was right that the Lord had brought this upon David, but not for any of the reasons Shimei thought. David receives adversity with humility. Let me go over and take his head off. Abishai didn't want to listen to Shimei's curse or to dodge his stones anymore. The mighty men surrounding David were more than ready to kill Shimei in an instant. So let him curse. David didn't try to shut up Shimei. He didn't close his ears to the unpleasant or critical words. David was willing to hear what God might say to him through a cursing critic. David let Shimei speak because he was not a bloodthirsty man. See, when you're not guilty, you don't have to defend yourself. Let people say what they want to say. You don't have to try to defend yourself. David let Shimei speak because he was not a bloodthirsty man. What have I to do with you? Ironically, if David were the kind of man Shimei said he was, Shimei would have been killed. David let Shimei speak because he saw the hand of God in every circumstance. The Lord has said to him. He knew that God was more than able to shut Shimei up. David didn't need to give the order. David let Shimei speak because he put the Shimei problem in perspective. See how my son, who came from my own body, seeks my life? Well, how much more now, maybe this Benjaminite. So David knew that his real problem was Absalom, not Shimei, and he did not lose this perspective. David let Shimei speak because he knew that God's hand was on the future as well as the present. It may be that the Lord will look on my affliction and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing this day. David knew that if he did what was right in the present moment, God would take care of the future. Let him alone and let him curse. David could take this fella's head off, and that in a moment, and yet he said, let him alone. Let him curse. And this makes a splendid example. If you can revenge yourself, then don't. If you could do it as easily as opening your hand, keep it shut. If one bitter word could end the argument, ask for the grace to spare that bitter word. Good advice, huh? So they refreshed themselves there. David was not without hope or comfort. God allowed comfort to find him, even if it was in the small things. David was able to receive comfort because he was at peace, and he knew that God was in control of Israel. In refusing to cling to the throne, David was like Jesus, who being in the form of God did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. Taking the form of a bondservant and coming in the likeness of men, and being found in appearance as a man, Jesus, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. Philippians 2:6-8. As we thus follow David through these days of humiliation and shame, we nevertheless understand more perfectly that he was indeed a man after God's own heart. In this book, A Tale of Three Kings, Gene Edwards put these words into the mouth of David. The throne is not mine, not to have, it's not to take, and it's not to protect, and it surely is not to keep. The throne is the Lord's. It was that kind of heart that kept David on track through such a difficult time and enabled him to even be refreshed. This is a radiant illustration of the deep and inward peace given to a man who is living in fellowship with God in motive and desire. Absalom's counselors. When Hushai, the Archite, David's friend, came to Absalom. Now Hushai wanted to leave with David and support him. 2 Samuel 15:32-34. But David thought it was better to send Hushai back to Absalom to both spy on Absalom and to give him bad advice. The bad advice from Hushai was thought necessary because Ahithophel was with Absalom. Ahithophel was famous for his wise counsel, and David wanted someone on the inside of Absalom's leadership who might frustrate Ahithophel's counsel. As I have served in your father's presence, so will I be in your presence. Hushai lied to Absalom, concealing his motives, like any good spy hides his or her true intention. Absalom follows Ahithophel's advice. So Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines." Ahithophel told Absalom to do something so offensive that it would eliminate any possibility of reconciliation with David. Ahithophel felt this strong statement would give courage to Absalom's followers. In the ancient world, taking the king's concubines was not only an act of immorality, but also an act of treason. This was a way for Absalom to not only replace David, but also to completely repudiate his father. Why did Ahithophel give such radical advice? Because it made sense from his own self-interest. Ahithophel had the most to lose if Absalom failed to keep the throne, or if David and Absalom reconciled. He would be revealed and rejected as a traitor. The Puritan commentator John Trapp wrote this of Ahithophel's tongue, which gave this wicked advice. "O tongue worthy to have been cut out, shred in gobbets, and driven down the throat of him that thus misused him, to the engaging of Absalom in such an unpardonable villainy beside hazard of his own immoral soul." So they pitched a tent to Absalom on the top of the house, and Absalom went into his father's concubines. This disgraceful act said a lot about Absalom, who actually did it. It is also a lot about Ahithophel, who must have had a strange sense of satisfaction in seeing David's women violated in a similar way to his granddaughter, Bathsheba. This was Bathsheba's grandfather, Ahithophel. 2 Samuel 11:3 tells us that Bathsheba's father was Eliam, one of David's mighty men, 2 Samuel 23:24. This also means that her father was Ahithophel, according to 2 Samuel 23:34. This shows the power of bitterness. Ahithophel was willing to see these women abused. Absalom grievously sinned, and the kingdom of Israel suffered greatly, all simply to satisfy his bitter longing for revenge. This disgraceful incident also shows that God kept his promise to David. "I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of the sun. For you did it discreetly, but I will do this thing before all of Israel, before the sun." 2 Samuel 12:11 and 12. Every part of the conduct of Absalom shows him to have been a most profligate young man. He was proud, he was vindictive, he was adulterous, he was incestuous, sleeping with your brother's, your sister, your daddy's wife, a parricide, and a fine, reprobate to every good word and work. Now the advice of Ahithophel, which he gave in those days, was as if one had inquired at the oracle of God. Ahithophel had a well-deserved reputation for giving counsel almost as good as God. But in this case, his counsel was foolish and destructive. It was foolish and destructive because it was motivated by bitterness. Bitterness has the power to turn our best qualities sour. It was foolish and destructive because God answered David's prayer, 2 Samuel 15:31, by prompting Ahithophel to give this foolish counsel, and in prompting Absalom to take the foolish counsel. Strangely, Absalom thought he could establish his kingdom through immorality. He was clever and a skilled politician, but ignorant about the ways of God. Praise God. That was chapter 16, and we read 17, 1 through 7, I think it is. 7 through 8. Absalom decides his direction. I will arise and pursue David today. Ahithophel advised a quick, selective attack against David only. I will strike only the king. He advised urgency, doing it all while David was still west of the Jordan River. I will strike only the king. This slip of the tongue was more like an unknown prophecy. Deep in his heart, even Ahithophel knew that David was the real king. And the same pleased Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Ahithophel's plan was smart. It was bold and had a high probability of success, and it would spare Israel a protracted civil war between the supporters of David and the supporters of Absalom. Hushai disagrees with Ahithophel. Now call Hushai. Now call Hushai the Archite. It is a remarkable evidence of the hand of God, an answer to David's prayer in 2 Samuel 15:31, that Absalom even asked for another opinion after such wise, well-received counsel. The advice that Ahithophel has given is not good at this time. So we can imagine that Hushai's heart sank when he heard of the smart plan Ahithophel suggested. He had to quickly think of a counterplan so that he could defeat the counsel of Ahithophel, as David asked him to do in 2 Samuel 15:32 and 35. You know your father and his men, that they are mighty men. So Hushai spoke of the David of the past, not the David of the present. Hushai saw David with his own eyes and knew that he was not strong and mighty. He hoped that Absalom would vividly remember the David of the past. Like a bear robbed of her cubs in the pit, by now he's hidden in some pit. Hushai knew David could barely keep himself together, but he effectively painted the picture that David and his men were dangerous and should not be attacked quickly. There's a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom. Hushai's point was that it was too risky to attack David immediately. We can imagine that he said all of this praying that God would indeed answer David's prayer and defeat the counsel of Ahithophel. So praise God. That is the conclusion of the commentary read for today from 2 Samuel, the 16th chapter, the 17th chapter, through the commentary takes you through the 10th verses. Praise God. So that concludes the read. This is who we are. We are SMRF family. SMRF stands for 7-Minute Read Family. SMRF. 7-Minute Read Followers. SMRF. 7-Minute Read Faithful Folks. SMRF. Either or, one of these sides you can read it correctly and one you cannot. But we're not going to worry about that. The Lord lays upon your heart to leave a financial blessing, then please do. $ Mama Pam 23. $ Mama Pam 23. Until the next read, keep me in your prayers. That God keeps on healing this body. God bless.